but the way they did this is they took those 6,734 loans and they divide them into what they call collateral groups. The better loans are in group 1. A little more shaky might be in group 2. Most of the trusts have 2 groups. Some have up to 4, 5, 6 groups. Then they break up the payment streams. So the loans in group 1, everyone makes their, in a perfect world, everyone makes their mortgage payments and they come to a paying agent, and then the paying agent puts them in this complicated computer system, all the numbers, and then there's the people that invested in this top slice or tranche or class, they get this payment stream, and the one that invested in the next one, they get this payment stream and this payment stream. And if you imagine these trusts like a loaf of bread, the bottom payment streams take the hit first. So if you're got, you know, the first 100 people that stop paying, the bottom slice, that heel of the bread, got knocked out. They're not going to get any more money. And then the next 100 people that stop paying, the next slice of bread got knocked out. And if you could, I'm happy to pass this around, but a lot of these are knocked out. They're not getting any of the payment stream in January of 2012. There's just not enough paying mortgages. Poor Mr. Back can't support every single slice of that investment, every single slice of bread. He's only able to eke out his payment, which goes to a few of the investors have their hands out because they're starving. So one of these tranches got sold to Freddie Mac. And the way that Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae work is that they both took loans from Countrywide and New Century and Quicken 123 and made their own trusts. And what they also did in their infinite wisdom is take pieces of these already made trusts and build trusts on top of trusts. So they took maybe 9 different trusts and took the top slice and put them all together and made another trust and then sold it back to us in these investments here, okay? Okay, so.
What we say they're worth.
Right.
When do we as a county realize that? And how does it affect us?
Okay, so the Freddie and Fannie back loans, the Freddie and Fannie back trusts, and remember they could have formulated their own trust from the raw loans, or they could have taken slices from these, what they call private label trusts. While many of the prospectuses or the security statements say, we're not promising that we're going to back this with the full faith and credit of the U.S. government, and we're not promising we're going to back them, it appears that so far we are backing. We are picking up the slack. Okay, we as taxpayers are picking up the slack. So it is unclear if we're going to really realize a loss through the payment through the investment, or if we're just going to realize a loss by increasing austerity measures, because somehow the money has to come to funnel these payments. So we may never realize the loss on the accounting because the county says, hey, we're still getting our monthly distributions. Remember on this one, so remember the distribution here, we're still here. So we haven't been knocked out yet. And if we're knocked out, maybe Freddie and Fannie through the taxpayers are going to pay it anyway. So the county is like, hey, no problem, as long as we got money coming in, we're fine. But we don't know. We don't know the answer to that question because the day of reckoning may come when either that money isn't there, or in my dream world, the American people rise up and just say, you know, we got to figure out something else because this is just not working for the 99%. This is not working for us. We're sick of being scammed. It's a big scam. It's a big scam. And it's totally unsustainable. I mean, just think morally and ethically. I mean, I know that this is a securitization teaching, but 61 families we're talking, there were in this one trust of 6,734 loans. 61 in our county. One person is able to sustain what he was given. Now, if that's not indicative of a scam, what is? There's a problem. And if we could do this to more and more trusts, I think people can understand it's not just the deadbeat family that bought more house than they can afford. Those types of figures matter because there was not 60 deadbeats lined up with Mr. Back to sign, you know, into this scam. There's one poor guy, probably has 4 jobs, depleted his retirement, has like other family members helping. Less than 40% of the loans that the trust still has are actually performing. So whatever the trust still has, there's only 40% of those people. There's 40% of Mr. Backs in those trusts, and when they get wiped out one after another, because they will, as their property values decrease or something happens to their family, there's going to be then less and less people to prop up this. This is a classic Ponzi scheme. The ending of a Ponzi scheme. There's less and less new people to be scammed, and we're trying to keep this together and escape regulation and escape law enforcement and escape criminal charges and lawsuits, as long as we got a few Mr. Backs keeping this up in the air. So the best thing for us is to get all the Mr. Backs to stop paying. We'll take care of this very quickly. So it's hard to convince people that they're supporting a criminal enterprise when they pay their mortgage, because you sound like a nut, but it's true. Okay, so we studied 37 trusts that had popular names like American Home Mortgage Assets or American Home Investment Trust or Soundviews. Of those 37, only 18 had 25% or less performing loans remaining. 8 had 26 to 30% performing loans remaining, and 11 had 31 to 38% performing loans remaining. So most of these trusts are really winding down. At the beginning of these 37 had over $228,000 loans. No, 228,000 loans at the beginking. Okay, investment banks heavily invested in these securities, like Merrill Lynch, which was taken over by Bank of America. So Bear Stearns was heavily involved in them. A lot of the investment banks have been wiped out, were wiped out because they gambled with our country. Pension fund managers, public and private, are invested in these securities. Insurance companies are invested in these securities. So what does that mean? So you pay your insurance company and they're invested in these companies, and then a hurricane comes and you go to collect your money, and they go and say, okay, we had a tragedy in Florida and we need to liquidate some of our investments to pay people for their homes. Guess what? Thanks for paying your premium for 20 years, but the seawall, Mr. Back isn't paying us enough to cover your insurance policy for your home. Local governments, counties, and municipalities are invested heavily in these. And this is why we all need to wake up, and it's not about the person not paying their mortgage. It is not about that, because it is a much bigger picture and it's very complex. Okay, so when you look at the investor reports, we know they're false and they're fake. They say loans are delinquent that have already been wiped out, sold, the home's been sold to a new buyer, that money is not there. Even a fourth of that money is not there. They're not going to sell that home's already been sold. They're claiming it, they need it. Why do they need it? The banks are insolvent, and they, just like a starving human being, if you're starving, what are you going to do to get food? You're going to lie, cheat, and steal. And the banks are insolvent, and they've got to lie, cheat, and steal to anyone they touch, whether it's an investor, whether it's a homeowner, whether it's, you know, your checking account. They must do it to survive. It is no different than a human being that has to lie, cheat, and steal to feed themselves basic needs to survive. And these banks, there will be more and more stories, not just about these trusts, but they're lying and cheating and stealing to survive. And our country, our administration refuses to say the hard, difficult, very dire truth. Our banks are insolvent. We bailed them out once. It didn't work. Thanks for the trillions of dollars, hundreds of trillions of dollars. It didn't work. They're still insolvent. That's the truth. It's going to really be difficult to deal with insolvent banks that we have to unwind. But we'll get through it. No, the truth is, everything's fine. You American people just pipe down. Don't protest. Don't put up your tents. We're going to quash any uprisings because we're going to pretend the banks are solvent, and the banks will continue to do what any starving entity will do, which is lie, cheat, and steal to survive.
Yeah, if the executives didn't take the money for bonuses, there would be help.
Well,
A little bit.
that's a big if.
But
I mean, you're talking about a criminal enterprise.
Right, exactly. But that's what
in a criminal
that's what
enterprise,
happens
there's
with
money
that
available.
money.
It's going to go toward, it's going to be ill-gotten gains. Okay, so most trustees and trust servicers refuse to modify loans. Instead, they'll foreclose. A lot of them want to foreclose. Some of the trusts will modify more than others, but remember, when they modify, they put on tens of thousands of dollars on the back end to pretend like the trusts are keeping up a value. If they add $10,000, $20,000 to each modification, on the books it's going to look great. But the families are not going to be able to sustain that because you owe $300,000 on a home worth $80,000. Now you owe $320,000 on a house worth $80,000. They just finagled the money and put some of it back here, and oh, you don't have to worry about paying this back for 20 years. So your monthly payment is $525,000, and you can easily afford that. The families don't understand that they still owe, now they owe $320,000 on something worth $80,000. And that's just not going to work in the long run. It's not going to work. It works very well for the banks that need to lie, cheat, and steal to pretend that they have an extra $20,000 on their books. But it wouldn't work for an individual. It's not going to work for the country. It's not going to work for our economy. They use foreclosure mills to foreclose because a criminal enterprise is going to associate with other criminal enterprises, and they again are going to lie, cheat, and steal because they don't have the truth. The truth is we have the legal right to foreclose, and therefore we will do so. The truth is you screwed up back in '06. We don't have the legal right to do jack, so we're going to have to make it all up for our clients, and so we can foreclose. And that is not going to change. No settlement's going to change that. No, we promise never to robo-sign again. They don't have the legal right to foreclose, and they've got to make it all up to pretend that they have the legal right, and our judges are willing to go along with that charade. They know it's a charade. They know it's false, and they are being derelict in their duty to protect the rule of law and the citizens of this country because either ideologically they can't deal with the family not paying their mortgage and getting to stay in their home, or because they truly believe they're doing the right thing to keep the charade going that these banks are solvent, or they're just dumb. I mean, some of these people you talk to, some of our elected officials, they wouldn't know invalid trust report if it bit them in the tush. So, let's see. Let's see what else Lynn has here. I'll just go through some of this quickly with time since it's 3 o'clock. These will be posted on Foreclosure Digest, the entire 100 points, foreclosurefraud.org, Foreclosure Hamlet. We have a radio show 6 to 8 p.m. every Sunday night on 740 a.m. or it's 6 to 8 p.m. every Sunday on 740 a.m. radio station. You can get it on WSBRradio.com. And then Michael has the MP3s for the videos up on the radio tab of foreclosurefraud.org. And tonight we actually have a special guest. Mary Ramirez is a law professor at Washburn University in Kansas. She wrote a paper called Criminal Affirmance that talks about what it means for us as a society to not prosecute this very elite financial crime that's caused such damage. And she has written a paper about this, and she's going to be a guest on our show tonight. We're also going to talk about our Rally to Tally, where we're trying to fight back a bill that keeps coming back every year, like Groundhog Day. It's a bill, House Bill 213, Senate Bill 1809, where the senators and the Florida representatives we've elected to office will have said in all their infinite wisdom, the faster and more fraudulent foreclosures we have in this state, the better for our economy, and they're trying to pass a law to make foreclosures go faster. All of these videos, as well as our previous teach-ins and the speeches we gave from our Rally and Tally on Thursday, are on the Occupy Palm Beach YouTube channel. Thank you, Carla. She is our Occupy videographer.
Move along.
Okay.
On HB 213.
No.
Okay, move along. Okay, so Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae are as guilty and implicated in this criminal enterprise, but they are not the only ones. You'll hear from very conservative politicians that it was Freddie and Fannie that caused this whole debacle. They are as guilty, but no more so or less so than any of the other financial institutions. So that is a distractionary technique. because their friends at the other national banks are giving them a lot of campaign contributions. So it's a lot easier to say the ones that aren't contributing are the ones at fault. But the truth is that they're all in this together, and they've really caused a lot of damage. Lender processing services is a huge financial institution that doesn't lend money. They process foreclosures from soup to nuts, from the delinquent home to selling the home to a new buyer to the title insurance. They even now are doing securitization audits for people in foreclosure. They have a huge robo-signing outfit going on in different areas of the country. One's in Jacksonville, one was shut down by the feds in Alpharetta, Georgia, one's in Dakota, Minnesota. They've actually been sued by one attorney general, Masto, sued them, and we hope more and more lawsuits come, both criminal and civil. This is a dangerous entity, and they are very, very powerful. People in our Attorney General's office here have gone to work for them while they were under investigation, and supposedly all these investigations are ongoing, but Pam Bondi, of course, is extremely bank friendly, so she prefers to investigate those who uncover bank fraud, as opposed to those who perpetrate it. But that's a whole nother 3-hour video. We don't have time for that right now. So the servicers are the middlemen, and one thing the investor reports show is that even in the best of circumstances for the investors, which is, okay, you got a family that can't pay, we're going to give them some sort of dignity in leaving their home, give them enough notice, we won't put fraudulent documents, we'll just work something out with them. The family leaves, now we have a home that we're going to sell to a new buyer. We got millions of productive families just lining up to take these homes over. We're going to sell it for a good, fair price. Even in those situations, you see the investors end up with bupkas.